Hey Elon, could we get some Cybertruck specs, please?
No, we can't talk about it right now, but I can tell you that the Cybertruck is going to be the most amazing product of all time. It's going to be a Hall of Famer, a once-in-a-lifetime experience. It's going to change the world. It's going to float. It's going to fly.
Okay, but when might we actually get some numbers for this thing?
I don't know. Maybe next quarter or something.
Wow, okay, so we're gonna have like a delivery event in July?
Late Q3. Late in the quarter.
Cool, okay, so September then.
Do you have to put a month on it? Really? Can't we just say later this year?
Why would you say Q3 if you didn't mean September?
Because it's complicated. It might come later. It might be on time. It's just 2 weeks.
All right. So Tesla's shareholder deck actually ended up being more insightful than I thought. For one, we got not one, and not two, but 3 images in the media section designated towards Cybertruck development, and the tooling stage seems to be coming along. They said they are building alpha prototypes right now, which is interesting considering at Investor Day, they had what they called the beta prototype, which typically beta comes after alpha, but as far as I can tell, these alphas are mostly meant for validation and testing, which means they probably have incomplete interiors, and the beta one at Investor Day probably had a more close to production ready interior. But by far the most interesting one was to get a bit more of a concrete timeline from Elon, so take all of it with a grain of salt. This is very likely going to get pushed back again, but at least right now they felt comfortable on the record during this call saying that they were going to save the updated specs and pricing for the Cybertruck for a delivery event that would take place in late Q3. So there's only 3 months in Q3, so I assume if he's saying later in the third quarter, that pretty much just narrows it down to September. So seeing Tesla actually publish more images of the Cybertruck and showcase it going through their winter testing cycle, which I believe most of Tesla's winter testing takes place in Alaska, so it's cool to think that somehow Tesla snuck an entire Cybertruck all the way up there, and now they're driving around in the snow, probably trying out that rear wheel steering and hopefully getting some kind of track mode on it. But it got me particularly excited because it just made the Cybertruck feel so much more real than before. We've been looking at the same dang pictures on the website for so long, but now we're not getting like leaked photos of people spotting it around Tesla HQ or seeing the frunk open up off in the distance, which, yes, by the way, it does open like the F-150 Lightning, which is amazing. But no, now Tesla themselves are posting manufacturing photos of it and saying that it remains on track to launch later in the year. And I was particularly happy to see Corey's thoughts on Twitter from Monroe Live, talking about how large the front casting is on the Cybertruck and how perfectly it connects to the top components, and this basically confirms that the Cybertruck is definitely not going forward with a body-on-frame design. We still don't really have images of like the incomplete exoskeletons, but clearly they've at least built one for the crash testing and validation. They have one in Alaska, and they have one at the wind tunnel out at Giga Texas with the updated frunk and everything, so I'm more and more confident now that there are Cybertrucks actually being pumped out of Giga Texas that are being driven around and tested for validation. But seeing a industry expert like Corey tear down how well executed these single piece castings are on the Cybertruck shows that they've definitely come up with a design that is not just radical on the outside but also on the inside. It's not being mass produced the way other vehicles have been made before, and I'd also argue it's a great sign that Tesla has been lowering prices on the 4680 Model Y by up to $3,000, because that means that 4680 sales have ramped, and they talked a lot about that on the earnings call, saying how there's multiple cost-saving stages that they talked about at Battery Day that are being implemented, and now that the orders are open, it's no longer just a accelerate delivery option or anything. This means that there's probably lots of 4680s that they now have access to specifically for the Cybertruck production ramp, and I hope that Elon's comments here can kind of alleviate all of the needless questioning that so many people love to do on these earnings calls, like, tell us more about Cybertruck specifications. Okay guys, he gave you an answer. He said they're gonna go more into the specs at a delivery event in September, so there's really no point in asking more about it now, so we just kind of have to hold our breath and be patient. And also I figured today's video would be a good time to remind everybody a few more steps that have to take place before Cybertruck delivery starts. For one, pricing, that is pretty easy for Tesla to hide. Like 4680 Model Y and the Tesla Semi, they both were delivering those things long before they revealed what they cost to the end user. But something that's much harder to hide is the range. Similar to how we got the range for the F-150 Lightning, the 4680 Model Y, and the Rivian R1T, that's documentation that typically has to be published through the EPA, and we can find that on the website. Cybertruck's not gonna sneak in as kind of a quiet alternative model. No, it will show up on that database and tell us exactly what the efficiency is, or the miles per gallon equivalent, and that same document will tell us what the maximum range is. So in the case of the 4680 Model Y, that showed up about 2 months before first deliveries, so I'm not exactly sure if the Cybertruck's gonna end up getting pushed back, or maybe this is a fake delivery event just for employees so they don't have to get it EPA tested. But if it does fall in line with the same release schedule of the 4680 Model Y, that would mean that we could potentially get a Cybertruck range reveal, at least for the first iteration, by July of this year. As in, yeah, like 3 months from now, we might actually find out what the range is. So that would be an exciting time. My guess is still that it's going to be just a little over 300 miles, because they're more than likely going to be using the same 4680 cells that they put in the Model Y all-wheel drive right now. Those are the ones they've ramped up. Those are the ones that are available, and they're likely fairly cheap and accessible to Tesla. So stacking 2 Model Y battery packs together would roughly equate you a 125 kilowatt hour pack or 130 kilowatt hour pack with the Cybertruck's aerodynamic shape and Tesla's next generation high voltage architecture, both for the big battery pack and the little one powering all of the internal electronics. I think they could easily get it to 330, 350 miles of range, somewhere in there. And they'll probably say that the 500 mile range variant will come down the road once the energy density increases for 4680 cells. But as skeptical as I am about the pricing being reasonable, you know, with all these price cuts, a lot of people assume, oh, Cybertruck must go down in price too, right? No, I still feel like because the Cybertruck is so incredibly high in demand and so low in supply, they can still probably price it absurdly high, more than what most of us are comfortable with, because they know someone will buy it. But against my own predictions and speculation here, Elon said on this earnings call that the Cybertruck is just an amazing product and it will not disappoint you at all. Very, very bold claims to imagine that the Cybertruck won't disappoint people at all, especially when we're pretty sure, even from these photographs, that the Cybertruck is probably now a 5-seater, not a 6-seater anymore. I know that's disappointing tons of people on Twitter already, but either way, I'm very grateful that Tesla was just willing to showcase how the pilot line is coming along. We're finally seeing the single piece castings from that massive 9,000 ton gigapress actually being put into these alpha prototypes, and people measuring out the dimensions and testing it in the cold weather. I just love seeing traction on this type of bizarre and high in demand product, and I'm just kind of trying to preemptively defend people about how many of the specifications may disappoint you, but seeing Elon get a bit more specific on the timeline instead of just later this year, now they're saying late Q3, which means September. There's still a chance it could get delayed. You know, Elon is definitely not very strict on his word. He even said in the same earnings call, yeah, I think we're gonna have full self-driving figured out later this year. Where have you heard that before? But I just wanted to keep you guys updated on what the current statements are from Tesla themselves. Not leaks, not rumors. This is just what the company is saying, and hopefully they can stay true to this timeline. You know, you would assume that as we get closer to the delivery event, the timeline would be progressively more accurate, right? So if Tesla themselves is claiming that Cybertruck deliveries are going to start in less than 6 months, they could be a little bit off, but that still sounds like at least first deliveries by the end of this year. And again, I predict this year they're just going to deliver Cybertrucks to employees, and then customers probably aren't going to get them until Cybertruck production ramps up a bit, which Elon said won't be until 2024. But either way, I'm just still excited for any news and information like the range or like the pricing, and of course the miles per gallon equivalent. I think it's going to get around 80. In case you're wondering, that would basically make it the most energy efficient pickup truck of all time. That would beat out the Rivian, it would beat out the Lightning, easily beat out the Hummer. But I'm curious if you guys think it will do better than that, or what do you think the first range will be? Do you think this timeline Elon's providing is accurate based on all these alpha prototypes we've been spotting around the factory and now from Tesla themselves? Feel free to speculate along with me down in the comments below, and thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. It seriously helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. Have an excellent rest of your day.